Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another fine Wednesday morning here in the city of Philadelphia. Welcome to another coffee break chat. I'm your host, James Jackson, executive producer, Light Thief Productions, he, they pronouns. And we've got an interesting show for you today. We're going to be talking a little bit about redistricting as Pennsylvania enters its trajectory towards the holiday break. The Pennsylvania government is doing its best to redistrict all the congressional districts. And that comes with its own set of fights about gerrymandering and how parties can arrange things so that they have support in an area, even though they don't actually have the majority of the population in support of them. We'll also talk about Philly Pride March's change of date, Christmas Village changes that seem to be a little bit interesting, and Senator Oz. I'm not sure how well, I'm pretty sure how I feel about this. Little added topic. We're going to talk a little bit about the Supreme Court today. Apparently, Roe v. Wade is on the table, and arguments start today about whether Roe v. Wade is going to remain the law of the land. But first up, I have our special guest just coming on screen now, Benjamin Camp. Please introduce yourself, what it is you do, and your pronouns.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Camp. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the co-founder of the theater company here in Philly, Team Sunshine Performance Corporation. We make original works from scratch that are bittersweet, hyper-contemporary, and people-focused. And we're working on a couple pieces now that we're excited about. And I'm a performer, creator, and producer with the company.
Awesome. So what do you have coming up right now? You told Megan, our associate producer, about Sincerity project number 4, and your optimism is not required. Tell us a little bit about these.
So the company sort of, is it a good idea? Who knows? Is making 3 pieces at once. It's a lot of pieces. But the one we just did our first showing of one a couple months ago called Your Optimism is Not Required, that'll come back in the spring. And that piece is a duet loosely set on a father-daughter camping trip that deals with climate change and parenting and race and the confluence of all of those things as those characters kind of try to live with each other and grow older with each other. So that's a piece that we're working on and excited to come back in the spring. But in just, what day was today? The first, next week, December 8th through 12th, we have the Sincerity project number 4. So the Sincerity project is a ongoing, a 24-year iterative autobiographical piece that is about an ensemble moving through time. And we do it every 2-ish years. It iterates, and we make a new piece sort of about the previous 2 years. So I don't know if people realize these last 2 years were a bit much.
A bit much.
Yeah, exactly. And so for this piece, we're sort of really breaking the model. We have a guest director, Siobhan Norris, who we're very, very excited about. She's brought in a few new folks to the ensemble, so the ensemble has grown some, and we're excited to share that piece, the 8th through 12th, sort of a limited run, doing what we can in COVID times, which is a weird time to make theater, as I'm sure you are aware.
Yeah, I'm a freelancer in addition to being my own production company, and I've actually already had a couple of pieces for the new year canceled. Having and had a couple of people that were asking for bids on productions, and just have them tell me, oh hey, We're not we're seeing numbers in the like single digit percentage of attendance, so maybe it's not a good idea that, that we're doing in-person productions. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do in-person productions myself, but hopefully audience attendance kicks up as much as possible soon. Um, yeah, that seems to be the crux of the issue right now.
Yeah. The Sincerity Project has an audience that's sort of following it, and we want to be super conscious and careful with everybody's health. And so we're doing as much as we can. We're in a larger space. We're asking everyone to be vaccinated and masked and hoping that makes people feel safer. But yeah, it's a weird time to go into a big room and sit
Yeah, with
for a
lots of other
while.
people.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. And we're trying to balance that as much as we can. But yeah, I totally understand. I totally understand that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so where I'm sorry, you probably already said this, but I'm gonna highlight it again. Where can people see more info about the shows? Where can they possibly get tickets, find out where, visually where they're going to be and when they're going to be?
Yep. You can get all of that on our website, which is www.teamsunshineperformance.com. Has all the information there. You can get tickets now. I do recommend, it's probably going to sell out because it's a pretty small audience. So if people are interested, I recommend going ahead and getting them. But we're at the performances at Arch Street Meeting House on 4th and Arch, which is a very cool space that we're excited to be in. And yeah, all the information is up there, and we'll also be releasing kind of more specific accessibility information and COVID information as things get closer and closer.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about, in depth, a little bit about your. I'm sorry, the title is escaping me right at the moment.
Your optimism is
Your
not required.
optimism is not required. Thank you. I couldn't find the word in my head.
No worries. No
Tell
worries.
me a little bit more about this piece and what it's about.
Sure. So your optimism is not required is a quote from a woman named Joanna Macy, who's a Buddhist writer and wrote a book called Active Hope, um, uh, which is about the process of living through what feels like the end times, um, and through living in a world that has a lot of messages, or that everything is ending or everything that is going to be okay. And neither one of those feels entirely true, but so she's kind of proposing a kind of active hope, uh, um, a universe where there's a choice to be made about which narrative we're following. Um, so we're reading her. We're reading Adrienne Marie Brown's Emergent Strategy. We're reading George Lakey's How We Win, and we're really thinking about how a narrative is framed around climate and how that narrative is passed, especially from, in this case, father to daughter or intergenerationally, and also how that narrative thinks about white people and black people and where people live in that narrative. So there's a white father, and his mixed race daughter, um, and they she's a teenager, and they're on this camping trip that's their usual camping trip, and you get to see kind of the ways that climate apocalypse is kind of crushing the father, and the way that crushing is being passed to the daughter in a way that is unhealthy. Um, and we're interested in ways that they break out of that cycle, or they could break out of that cycle. And there's a kind of an audience interaction mechanic where we cast the audience as other people in their lives by basically holding up cue cards. Um, and the whole thing is outdoors. It's designed to be COVID friendly, so it's outdoors. It's set at a campsite, and so we light a fire, and then the audience has s'mores at the end. Spoiler alert.
Well, that's the fun part. The rest of it is the serious part. I like the serious part. That's pretty cool. Um, it's interesting to examine climate change through the lens of critical race theory, and really kind of delve into how climate change affects everyone, and then you're also doing some generational exploration of how climate change affects generations differently. That's all very cool. Like a lot of people don't think about it, but how much climate change affects even, like everything from your day-to-day interactions with the people that you cohabitate with to, like international politics. There was recently the back and forth accusations between the EU and I want to say Romania, where there were migrants amassed along a border, and the EU was accusing the host country of intentionally attacking the EU with migrants. Um, you know, that kind of thing is troubling. It's troubling to see like this narrative. These conservative narratives. I don't have a better word for it than conservative. I'm sure there is a better word for it, but these narratives of kind of nationalism and self protection that aren't actually realistic. Like that's what bothers me about it the most. I don't know how you feel about all this. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on a bit, but the when we're going to experience in our lifetimes much more migratory movement of humans. The borders that are drawn on the world map don't make any sense as far as needs and resources. So, like people in South Africa need water and oil. People in Nairobi need the financial services that they can get in South Africa. These and the work that they can get in South Africa. The borders are meaningless because Nairobi is a big farming area, and you can get all the water and food resources you want out of Nairobi, but you don't need a lot of people there. So people are going to move towards the places where they can get services, except for, a few interested farmers and the like, people who like to be involved with the land. And I just find it fascinating that this idea of human migration being bad, this locking in of individuals to a geographic location where they were born for some reason. Do you have any insight onto why, like somebody would necessarily be required to live where they were born? Like that doesn't, maybe I'm just.
I mean, I don't know that I have an insight into borders in general, but I do feel like there's something happening around borders that has to do with the narrative that there is not enough, and that a country or a place has to hoard what they have, and that narrative benefits somebody, and it's an intent. It feels like an intentional narrative, and it's benefiting. I mean, mostly white men who are making sure that we're all scared and that we need to hoard what we have, and we have to keep out others.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's what it feels like to me.
I think that's the most troubling part of it. That there is this others like that people actually believe in a concept of others, of there being like some sort of mysterious division of people, when in reality people are just people. And the things like the pandemic you would hope would prove that, like, you know, we're all susceptible to this same virus. We all, you know, like if we all work together, we can get through this, you know, but being divided seems to be the way that people want to push this. Um, Speaking of being divided, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the Supreme Court. Um, Mississippi instituted a 15-week limit on abortion. So abortions after 15 weeks of gestation are illegal in the state right now. There's been the usual wrangling back and forth between women's rights and anti-abortion uh, folks, legal experts, that kind of thing. And you know, this I've talked a little bit about this before, but I think it's important to bring up again. Um, you know, I am an anti-racist. Like I'm an anti-racist, and just because I'm a black person, you know, a mixed race person, this, you know, I find anti-racism important. Um, the the first step towards a reinstitution and reconstitution of a racist, racially divided state in the United States is anti-abortion, breaking down women's rights, because you're creating instantly two groups. You're creating instantly, if this law is upheld, you're creating instantly half the population who are beholden to other people without their own say. So, what do I mean by this? Say you die and you don't have an organ donor card, but you end up in a hospital with somebody who will die in the next 24 hours without your liver. Um, Guess what? That person's going to die. And That's because the concept of body autonomy is the keystone to all other human rights that we claim exist. Um, so bodily autonomy, the ability to decide for yourself what happens inside your skin and on the surface of it, is key to you know, any sort of other human right that you want to claim. And as soon as you start breaking down that human right, as soon as you start allowing that human right to be violated in any sort of way, it opens the door to saying, well, there's this. And what we're saying right now, what you know, anti-abortion folks are saying right now is that, sorry for the cat interruption.
Happens.
Yeah, we all work from home. The What anti-abortion activists are saying right now is that an unborn, possibly human, at some point in the future will become a human, has more right to life than the person who is sustaining that potential life. And I find that problematic. I don't know that this how that might necessarily tie back into your piece, but if you have any tiebacks, feel free to jump in with it. Um, I see that, you know, the title, your optimism is not required. I think that's your participation isn't required in any of this either. Like, you know, people can be anti-abortion without trying to demand what other people do within their own body. And
I
um,
mean, it feels like the so much of this movement that's brought us to this place is not actually about abortion at all, but is about control and power in the way you're discussing. Because if this isn't, it's not a great way to lower the number of abortions,
no,
which
it's
I
it's
think,
actually the opposite of a good way because
yeah,
who was it that recently legalized all abortion? I believe it was Venezuela, South American country. Um, I'm having trouble bringing it up off the top of my head, but I can look it up later, or anybody who's watching can feel free to look it up. It was a big news story. um, but yeah, the reason, one of the main arguments around legalizing abortion there was that when you legalize abortion, the number of abortions goes down. Simple as that. People start paying attention and realize that, oh, hey, this is an option. I can protect my life with this, or I can do other things. Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, healthcare, birth control, and you know, financial support for families would also, I
yeah.
would suspect, drop the number of abortions precipitously.
Yeah, yeah. Sex education is one of the sex education and providing birth control are providing free birth control are the two easiest ways to lower the number of abortions. So yeah, yeah. So all those folks that are right to life, stop being so squeamish about whether or not your kid sees a vagina in class. Because if your kid sees a vagina in class and is educated as to how babies are made, they're a lot less likely to make babies. Um,
I mean, the show that we're making is doesn't specifically get into abortion rights, but it does touch on, I think, the ways that this comes back to patriarchy and men's inability to communicate about about women or with women or listen to women, or people who have uteruses about their experiences there, and that squeamishness, the fact that there's allowed to be a squeamishness about physical processes that a lot, 50% or more of the population is going through, is just straight up power play.
yeah, and
Um,
and this kind of mystification of human sexuality is has always been a power play in some way or another, and it baffles me. Maybe like I guess maybe growing up in a household where all this kind of stuff was discussed out in the open, maybe that's why it baffles me. But it baffles me from the perspective of what I mean, it's such a minor advantage to mystify human reproduction, like to mystify sexuality and sex, and keep it kind of quiet. What I I don't, like I kind of these things always kind of turn into this weird conspiracy theory kind of thing, and I kind of I don't want them to, but the more often I discuss these kinds of things, it's interesting to see the interconnects, and I wonder constantly if the interconnectedness is intentional. So, what I'm talking about is like the fact that if you drive for if you drive for against women's rights, you're setting up a process that will lead to segregation, and then and creates a segment of the population that is enslaved to another segment of the population. Um, it's just yeah. Go ahead.
it's that process of othering that you're sort of talking about before. You know, the mystifying someone makes them other. There's a standard, there's a normal, and then there's an other, and you get to do things to the other. And the more that normal and understandable is white men, the more that other is not white men, then white men can justify their bullshit.
I get that. Yeah. And then so then I wonder, is that actually intentional or does that just happen organically? Like, like that's my constant question in my head. Like I don't want to be that guy in front of the chalkboard with like the wires going everywhere, but sometimes I feel like that. Like especially when I'm thinking about this, is there some guy with a chalkboard? So, what I wanted to one of the other things I wanted to talk about today is uh, three children died in a school shooting yesterday. We've been back in schools like not even completely full time for what, like a month or two now. Um, and there's already mass shootings in schools again. Um, and I was in my head, I was thinking, my God, this is kind of the perfect thing for all of those people who want to privatize and individualize schooling, that want to drive schools into the private sector. You know, is Betsy DeVos pro-gun and anti-gun control because she wants to privatize school, or is it just a happenstance that that being anti-gun control creates an environment where there are school shootings and therefore puts weight into the argument for privatizing school?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's both, right? There are people who are being intentional. We know this. We see this with the gerrymandering efforts. We see this with the abortion, anti-abortion movement. There are people who are plotting these things out. And then also there's a huge amount of just cultural training that people get that they don't know is cultural training, that that lock them into a way of thinking. I personally will never forgive this country for Sandy Hook, the reaction to Sandy Hook. That I think about that often, and that the non-reaction to that is inexcusable and unforgivable. And I'm still really, really mad about it. And I think about that anytime another one of these events happens. That there have been so many obvious moments, and that one was the most obvious
And
to do
like
something.
uh, one of the things I talk about often on the show is grifters. One of the biggest grifters that came out of that era, which isn't so long ago, which is like 2 years ago, is Alex Jones. Alex Jones was a grifter before that. He is a grifter still. He will be a grifter probably till the day he dies of hopefully lung cancer and or taking one of his supplements, um, rather than seeking medical help. But he's famous for his gay frogs thing, but he's also famous for telling people that Sandy Hook was a hoax and that everybody was a crisis actor. Uh, Fortunately, maybe the folks who were affected by Sandy Hook, the parents, successfully sued Alex Jones for defamation and won their case. But how much solace is there in that? Like like that doesn't solve anything. That doesn't stop Alex Jones because somebody else is going to pay that bill, not Alex Jones. Um, how do we block that? And then so this is perfect in that we now have a longtime grifter and relatively famous person, Dr. Oz, running for Senate in Pennsylvania as a Republican. Uh, Dr. Oz, for those who don't know, was started as a regular guest on Oprah Winfrey Show. Thanks, Oprah. And spun off his own show, daytime talk show, where he gives advice. He is a medical doctor. He's a heart surgeon. But he has been a longtime proponent of several products that are not FDA approved or and do not have any clinical trials behind them, including several diet pills and health pills that he markets through his fame. And he's been called to task by Congress and testified and been openly read the riot act and told you should stop doing this because what you're promoting has no efficacy and you should know better. Yet he hasn't stopped, and now he's running for the Senate through Pennsylvania. He doesn't live here. He doesn't live in Pennsylvania, by the way. He lives in New Jersey, and he was born in Ohio. The only link to Pennsylvania he has is he went to school at the University of Pennsylvania for part of his undergraduate career. So yeah.
I can't roll my eyes any harder at this news. Of course, that's exactly what we need.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting rid of Pat Toomey, and now the Republicans want to put up Dr. Oz.
I wonder even if the Republicans do want to put up Dr. Oz. I mean, certainly Dr. Oz wants to put up Dr. Oz. I'm curious whether the Republicans and also the subset of deranged Republicans is interested enough in Dr. Oz, or whether his fame is enough. Whether they recognize him, so that's all they need. I don't know.
So I wonder at this. So this is an interesting thought experiment. So there's the group that basically elected Trump, and a large portion of the electorate that goes for all Trumpian candidates is white women, particularly non-college educated white women. Something like 60 to 80% in any given election vote for the Trumpian candidate. And this is held true even before there was a Trump. This is held true anytime there's been a candidate that promises a return to family values, or some sort of protectionism, some sort of aside from the white male vote, which reliably stays the same with Trumpian type candidates. You have this white women's vote that swings into their column whenever you start talking about things that are popular with them, anti-abortion, protectionism, bringing the troops home, that kind of thing. These are all like keys to that voting bloc. And the biggest key is what the Republicans learned in the 80s, the return to family values, the throwing back to some sort of pastoral image of America with apple pie and white picket fences. Point being, interestingly, Dr. Oz is relatively well positioned to take advantage of that group because he has huge name recognition from being not only a daytime TV host, but being brought into name recognition by Oprah Winfrey, which gives him additional cachet than even he could develop himself, especially amongst people who are white people apologists, the folks that don't understand how I can correlate NIMBYism with racism. Um, if that's confusing for anyone, if that's confusing for anyone that's on the broadcast, NIMBYism is kind of a gateway to racism, and it's a really easy way for people to exercise their racism without saying that they're racist. Um, I don't want that in
Sure.
my backyard. Well, why do you, why is it not your, why is it your backyard? Well, because my people have always lived here. Well, who are your people? All right.
And have they even always lived there?
Right. Are they native? Um,
Yeah, they get there pretty recently.
yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, interestingly, the Dr. Oz will have a kind of wedge into this kind of this group, which does make up a significant portion of the swing vote in Pennsylvania. Um, I'm wondering how that will play out in the elections. It's going to be an off-cycle election. There's no presidential candidate. Turnout is usually lower. Um, is there going to be enough turnout in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia to counterweight all um, the gerrymandered districts in the suburbs and the honestly conservative districts in the rural areas of the state? Um,
And who will the, I'm curious who the Trump machine will back, since the person Trump was backing turns out to be sort of a trash person. Um, and so where will that support go, and will that matter? I'm curious about that in this
that
election.
there's been an interesting. It started with what was that close election there? Oh, Virginia. So I've been watching this starting with Virginia. The Virginia elections just happened when we had our district attorney elections here in Philadelphia. There was a rather important election in Virginia, which swung the state back to Republican control. And the candidate who won the election, the Republican who won the election, did an interesting dance. A lot of the publicity around the a lot of the campaign publicity was that he was a pro-Trump candidate, that that Trump had endorsed him, that Trump wanted him elected, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But every interview, um, every think piece, every direct talk to, every direct speech on the issue either avoided the Trump endorsement or denied it. Said that he wasn't a Trump candidate, that he's actually a progressive Republican, and that he's actually a very moderate Republican. I don't know how you sell somebody who's anti-abortion, anti-immigration, and a bunch of other things that are very, very typically Trumpian to be a moderate, but they were very successful. The swing vote in Virginia, this particular demographic, which we've already been talking about, and I hate to put it all on white women, and say, hey, like, this is your fault, because black people get blamed for this all the time in elections. They're like, oh, you didn't turn out enough in the cities, so the Republican candidate got elected. I don't want to blame it on white women per se. It is a key demographic that seems to swing elections very easily. Um, you, you know what the black vote's going to be. It's going to be 98% in the male in the men. It's going to be 98% Democratic vote. In the women, it's going to be something like 96% Democratic vote. Um, and then so the white vote is a huge portion. Being 20 some percent of the overall population in most districts, the black vote can swing an election, but then you look at the other 20 some percent, which is white women, and the another 20 some percent, which is white men. Well, you know where the white men are going to vote. You know where the black men and women are going to vote. So, that's how we end up focusing on this demographic all the time.
In my body, I feel more comfortable throwing the white men under the bus just because I get to get down there with them. But yeah, I mean, I think that was a surprising statistic. Um, yeah, let's not let the white men off the hook though.
No. Obviously, if white men
Get your
voted,
shit together, gentlemen.
yeah, if they voted towards their interests, it would be a great day in politics. No Republican would ever win again. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
but no, because seriously, folks, like if you want to solve most of the world's ills, just make healthcare free and forgive college debt, and you're like 90% on the way to the greatest economy that we've ever had in the history of mankind, and the most productive group of people that will ever exist. But yeah, that's my pro healthcare speech for that.
I'm in.
I'm in. um,
If it's up to the two of us, it's done.
yeah, well, you know what's interesting? Like, if any national poll, any actual door-to-door count, you'll find that it's close. It's something like 49 to 43. It's close that the overall population is in favor of all these progressive reforms. Um, but there's a combination of factors that makes them not happen. One of the biggest ones is gerrymandering. I'm gonna send this link out to Megan and ask her to post it out on the chats. And I'll post it here for you. But there's a Washington Post article, "The Best Explanation of Gerrymandering You Will Ever See." How to Steal an Election, a visual guide. But yeah, it explains why gerrymandering works. And gerrymandering works because you basically take areas where you have actual equal representation of what that area actually wants, and then you carve it up so that you know who's going to get elected. And so in the grand two-party system argument, people have always been like, "Oh, well, both Democrats and Republicans do this." Well, the overwhelming evidence is that Republicans do it more successfully because we have that 49-43 split in the country, but we don't have 49% representation by Democrats, and nor do we have 43% representation by Republicans. So a representative democracy is not working as intended. And
or it is.
or it is.
It's working as someone
It's
intended.
working as some, yeah. Whoever figured this out first, freaking genius. Like, oh, I don't have enough support. Like, I look at things, like, if I go, if I go to say, like I'm working with a crew and we're deciding whether or not to take a break or just work power through it and get it done. Um, and I poll them, and there's no support for powering through it and getting done. We take a break. I never thought of dividing the crew up into different groups and then like putting two people together so that they influence each other, and then also so that they're underrepresented in the grand scheme of things. It's amazing. Amazing what you can do when you have money and time to think about these things.
It comes all the way from the Electoral College,
Mhm.
and it's designed to keep power in a certain place in a certain group of people, and you know, it's baked in.
Well, I
It's
mean,
baked in.
you're talking that critical race theory stuff again. Um,
I am. Come yell at my school board.
yeah, well, and that's a whole nother can of worms. We need to open, dump out, and then get rid of all the worms. Um, yeah,
Did you see the article about the school boards? There's all of this controversy and hubbub over school boards, and then they went and interviewed people in the actual schools who are like, "We don't have enough teachers.
yeah, yeah.
Please help us."
Well, what's interesting is if you go on Twitter, if you go on political Twitter, I like to call it political Twitter. A few other people do it as well. Um, Activist Twitter, whatever you want to call it. There are people who are using their time to actually track the groypers and grifters who are leading this astroturfing, um, and who show up repeatedly at random school board districts, um, you know, pushing this agenda that I don't know if they actually believe in it, but they're getting paid for it. Um, somebody's paying for those flights, somebody's paying for that time. Uh, I,
It sure feels like an intentional distraction, because if you actually look into this for more than 30 seconds, this is not a real thing.
no,
And so someone is benefiting from the concept that it is a real thing, and that feels very intentional. I mean, it's so transparent. Like with abortion rights, you at least have some. You could put a religious patina on it, but like this is so blatantly not real
right, right. Like
that
who
it kind of boggles the
even if
mind.
even if you're ultra conservative and very religious, what is your baseline for being against critical race theory?
Which they don't teach in high schools.
Right,
I mean, this is not a thing.
right.
Like even if you were against critical race theory, you're in the wrong school board meeting. Like this doesn't make a lick of sense, and anyone who actually looks at it knows that. So if you're raising a hubbub against critical race theory, you're either talking about something else and using the wrong words, or you're intentionally trying to distract from something.
And
Because
and yeah, so there are, and maybe that's the bigger problem. There are people, and I was thinking about this on my walk from dropping off my daughter this morning. There are people who actually believe they're patriots, that they're protecting the country, that they're protecting the rights of other people who they see as citizens. They don't see the same people as citizens that I do. But yeah, there are people who think that they're doing a good thing by uh, fighting for the ability of children to arm themselves and go across state lines and illegally carry a weapon according to another state's constitution, and then shoot three people dead in an attempt to uh, protect the businesses in that other town, in that other state. I'm sorry. When did the draft come back? When was Kyle Rittenhouse in the army? Did I miss something? Did the national guard get called and Kyle Rittenhouse was wearing a uniform and in any way empowered to be a legal, a representative of the state? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's people that actually think, oh, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. I mean, even if you believe that people should have stronger gun rights than I believe in, that felt pretty irresponsible. I think it's hard to argue that what he was doing was responsible gun ownership.
right.
And so,
No, it wasn't, and I am a proponent of gun ownership. Especially black gun ownership. I'm a huge proponent of it. I am 100% of the belief and understanding that individual gun ownership does affect politics and will, in certain cases, keep politicians in line and from doing things that are outside of what the voting population wants. And I've seen actual transcripts of senators and congresspeople talking about the fact that they would vote for something, but there's a lot of gun owners in their district, and not gun, and this wasn't gun control that they were talking about. Um, uh, so yeah, I'm a huge proponent of the equalization that gun ownership allows for, in politics, in self-protection, in social protection, a group protecting itself, or a neighborhood protecting itself. Um, However, yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse isn't a patriot, and having your mommy drop you off at a protest with an AR that's loaded is not responsible gun ownership.
or responsible parenting.
Right. I own guns. I will not. I will. Not, I don't take my guns to a protest. Like, protesting and guns are two different things. When you get guns involved in a protest, that's called a civil war. Like, uh, uh, anyway.
Yeah. I'm Quaker, and so I don't own guns, and I don't plan to. But I think there's a confusion. I feel a confusion sometimes around gun ownership and gun culture and what's being applauded. Um, which I hear you pointing at, that there's a way to own guns or think about gun culture, but when gun culture starts to applaud the use of guns everywhere, that feels problematic to me. And also, where is that message coming from? um, Team, Team Sunshine is working on another piece, um, called The Great American Gun Show,
Mm.
which is, our co-founder Makoto Hirano is the lead artist for that one, and it's interested in, um, gun culture and Asian American identity, and the way that those two kind of, are or are not in conflict. Um, that's a very broad generalization of what the piece is about. It's far more complicated than that. And I don't want to speak for Makoto necessarily, but it's something that the company is thinking about and exploring artistically and creatively. that we're very excited about.
Yeah, I mean and I think that that is the most important thing that art and artists can do, is explore these topics. Just before, it's 10:57, so just before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on a couple of the things that we didn't get to. After 30 years of competing with other events, Philly Pride is moving to a new date. It will now be the Philly Pride March, which is no longer a parade. It will be a march, and it will be in the first week of June, the first weekend of June, so as not to conflict with some other things that it has always traditionally conflicted with, including a black festival. And I applaud the new Philly Pride organizers for making that move. Um, yeah, so it's always conflicted with Philly's Odoon Festival, which is a black-led festival, and so now it won't conflict with that anymore, and it'll be on its own weekend. That's kind of awesome.
Seems like the right call.
Yeah, it's a good call. Oh, friend of the show, Stix Latte, posted, people forget the words well-organized militia in the Second Amendment. Yeah, they do. And I've read the Second Amendment so many times now because, just trying to parse it. It is a very difficult amendment to parse, because it's written in 18th century legalese. Uh, if you're honest about it, the Second Amendment does not protect individual gun ownership. The Second Amendment is all about making sure that the population is prepared to be enrolled into the national defense. So it protects the ability of any individual citizen to be familiar with arms and armor, so that when there is a national defense need, we could call on them. And it was written before there was a standing army. So you have to consider all of those things anyway. Yeah, people forget the well-organized militia part. Um, Philly's traditional Christmas Village returns with a liberating new attraction, is the WHYY headline. I find it a little overbearing, but really the whole kit and caboodle of it is that the Office of the Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy, as well as the Department of Commerce, threw in together to purchase three of the booths at Christmas Village, and sponsor black and brown owned small businesses having those booths, because it's very expensive to both rent the booths and also to have the inventory available to run the booth for the entire season. And then you get penalized if you don't have inventory available at some point. So you're going to have leftovers. And so micro businesses and really small businesses have traditionally always had a hard time participating in the market. So those two offices of the city rented out the booths, got shipping containers decorated by a local black artist, and they are basically sponsoring these small and micro businesses to be able to participate in this part of the economy. Sounds like a good idea to me. I don't see a downside here. It's the city paying itself to make a level playing field. But yeah,
I don't know who's making the income from the carousel, but as a person who took his daughter on the carousel, they're making bank for 2 minutes of slow spinning. That is an income generator, because boy, did she want to get on there.
Is it electrically driven, or is it got one of those like generator?
I'm sure it's electric. I'm not. I don't really know.
Yeah.
It's double decker, and
Oh,
there's a tiger that's very
Yeah.
enthralling if you're six.
That is important if you're six. Any last thoughts? It's 11:02 here in the studio. I want to be respectful of your time and everybody else's time. Any last thoughts, comments, concerns, anything like that?
From me,
Yes, from you.
I would say I think we've decided that everyone should get free healthcare and also come check out the Sincerity Project for December 8th to 12th. Those are
Yes.
the two decisions that I would leave us with.
I think those are two very learned positions, and yeah, everybody should definitely check out the Sincerity Project #4. And the links are in the chats on social media. And we will make sure to provide the links on all our outlets over the course of the day. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate the conversation. Um, uh, Ben, please feel free to come back anytime as a regular commentator, and I will let you go. And I'm going to go to a one-up of me and close out the show. So thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you to all my guests. Thank you to the folks that are watching at home. Really appreciate you taking the time out to just take a look at the coffee break chat. If you like what you've seen, consider becoming a patron on Patreon, patreon.com/lightbeefproductions. You can join as a patron for as little as $1 a month. $5 a month gets you some insider information and a look forward at upcoming projects. Please tune in again next week. Are we on next week? Let me pull up my calendar. Hang on a sec. Sorry. Yeah, we have 2 more weeks, the 8th and the 15th. Next week we have Anna Kurtz, artistic director, and Mark Ashen from Theater on the Verge's Mr. Digger's Spooky Christmas radio special. Look forward to having them as guests, and we'll have a whole new crop of topics. We might revisit some of these because, it'll be interesting to see what the Supreme Court does. They probably won't decide anything in a week. They usually take a couple of months. But subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Mob Crush. Hit that like button if you don't mind, and hit the subscribe button to get notified when we do go live. And feel free to share the replay on your social media as well. Thanks everybody for joining us, and have a good rest of your week.